Hi,
Hi,
how are you?
how are you?
I'm doing good.
Awesome.
Can everybody hear me okay? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Awesome. Okay, I got headphones in this time. Um,
Hold on, it's in and
all
out, but
right.
there may be
So
my Wi-Fi though. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but it's going in and out.
Okay, you can hear me?
Yes.
I think it was my Wi-Fi. I had to turn it off. Okay,
Okay. All
all
right.
good.
Um, so let's get started. For anyone that is coming in for the very first time, my name is Stephanie Jack, and this is the Rose Golden Hour live series of 2020. I have been doing this since October 14th to be exact. And the reason why is because I want to have one-on-one intimate experiences with women of color, and they can be birth workers, they can be moms, they can be entrepreneurs, or a mixture of the three. And we want to talk about things that normally don't get the spotlight. And so tonight I have a very special guest of honor, and her name is Miss Tiffany Campbell. And tonight's topic is releasing generational trauma. And I'm super excited to talk about this. And yeah, I just want to give you the floor to introduce yourself.
Okay. Well, everybody, as she said, I'm Tiffany Campbell. I'm a well, I would say full spectrum doula as well as certified lactation counselor from Birmingham, Alabama. For my full-time job, I am a social worker as well as a mom, full time. Yeah, this just to tell you a bit about who I am. Do you want me to go more in depth or?
Um, and you told me before that you did social work. Are you still doing that?
Yes, yes, I am a social worker.
How has that been having to balance social work, birth work, and motherhood at the same time?
It hasn't been that challenging actually. What I do actually in social work is case management. So my job is pretty much flexible. I'm able to move how I need to move in order to do the things that I choose to do in life. So it hasn't been too much of a challenge as far as working in birth work. Motherhood and birth work, I would say is a little more challenging, but
Mm.
not as such. I have a great village of support with my family. So they do help me out when I am on call for births, when I am at births, when I do my prenatal, postnatal, postpartum, all of those visits, they are on standby to be there to watch my daughter as needed. So
Mm.
I'm able to pretty much, thankfully, move how I need to move these days. So I'm grateful for that.
Um, that's beautiful. I feel like on my side of things, it's a little bit different where, um, of course, I am building a village, but I don't currently have the support that I would like to have to be there for my children. And yeah, and I feel like I'm getting into the space of birth work at a time where I'm needed more at home. I feel like now I'm doing things
Mm,
where I'm catering to the needs of other women, where I'm the
mhm.
one that is also needing that. And now having to factor in a new addition into the home, I do not know what birth work is going to look like for me. So I definitely um, am happy that you do have that support from your family as well as your village of, you know, your full range community.
Thank you.
Um, what are what is the thing that you're most proud of that you accomplished this past week?
Ooh. It's only Wednesday, but no. I would say the most thing that I am proud of from this week is scheduling myself a therapy appointment. which is crazy because I have been in therapy for 3 years. I'm sorry, somebody knocking on my door. Hold on one second. That's random. Oh, child, this UPS, I'm forever getting a
Oh.
letter. But I would say that yeah, scheduling a therapy appointment. I've been in therapy for 3 years, since April of 2017. However, April 2020, I kind of went on a hiatus because my therapist just wasn't what I needed, you know. So it was kind of pointless for me. It wasn't pointless for me to be going, but it was just like nothing that I was getting from it.
Mm.
But I did realize that, you know, it's been almost a year again since I've been, and I needed to kind of get back on that track. So I looked for therapists and I booked one. So I'm proud of myself for that. I have been looking for a very long time, been saying I'm gonna look for one for a very long time and haven't took the strides to do so. So I did that this week.
I'm proud of you. That's a
Thank
huge
you.
accomplishment because I know that a lot of the work that we do as moms and birth workers and all of the things is to be there for other people and to a lot of times be a therapist or be a listening ear for other people, and sometimes you need to be able to process your life in the way that things come. And I, this past year, since I've had my daughter in 2019 in November, I've been seeing a therapist, and this is the first time that it's been consistent, and it's through my health insurance, and um, I love it. I feel like I would be in a different space if I wasn't consistently seeing someone at the same time to be able to process my life, because there's so many different crazy things that happens all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's
talk to
awesome.
me. Thank you. Talk to me about what it's like to be a woman of color from the South, and the fact that women of color need to be heard um, or seen.
Being a woman of color from the South, for me, I wouldn't say that I have had any personal experiences with the things that are going on currently, such as racism and things like that, but I know that it does happen. So that's a big thing here. But as far, what was the second part of your question? I'm sorry, I got off.
Because we talked about the fact that women of color from the South need to be heard slash
Yes,
seen.
yes. And so my part in helping that to happen is my birth work, my lactation work, and things like that. Because as a doula, I get to see a lot of people. I get to meet a lot of medical providers. I go into a lot of different hospitals in the city. And so, of course, I get my share of experiences. And Black women in general, especially here, but all over, now that, you know, the pandemic has happened and we have seen tons of mothers losing their lives, unfortunately, in the medical setting, we are not taking it seriously.
Mm,
And especially being in the South where racism, I wouldn't say is more prominent. Um, but I think me specifically being in Birmingham, Alabama, or Alabama in general, the Bible Belt, there are a lot of closed-minded people here and a lot of people that are still living in the footsteps of their racist grandparents and taking that knowledge generational, taking that knowledge into what they're doing and how they're serving people these days. So I see all of that. But my job to counteract that, and you know how I kind of help my mom's clients through that, is just educating them and telling them that they do have a voice no matter what others say, and helping them to find that voice
mm.
despite all that is currently and has been going on in the medical system and in general, really.
True. I feel like specifically because, as you said, you're in Alabama, I'm in Texas, and I
Hmm.
think that the the situation around systemic oppression, I feel like it's double the work. I feel like, of course, there's going to be systemic oppression in so many different ways. There's so many ways to feel and be affected by oppression, no matter where you are. But I think specifically in southern states where slavery was fought so hard to, to be instilled into the laws, into the policies in everyday
Mm-hmm.
life, um, we have to kind of work double
Mm-hmm.
because of the experiences that we're in. Um, Mind you, you can have a pro-life state, but also where I am, we're very pro-death penalty out here, and so it's a lot of things to put into consideration about the environment that you want your children to grow up in, and you decide voting for president comes to your
I'm
currently.
sorry, you're breaking up, so I can't hear anything.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I hear you now.
Okay. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
No, you're
In
fine.
short, I think I was just trying to get at the point where you have to do more than just vote every 4 years
Oh yeah.
or, do the thing to make you feel like you're doing what's needed to get rid of social and systemic oppression. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but you said about the fact that you are a doula and a certified lactation consultant. Um, how long have you been doing birth work, and why is it important to be a lactation consultant, or how has that changed your journey as far as being a birth worker?
I started birth work officially, I would say October 2018. That's when I finished my doula course. Um, and started taking doula clients. I got my lactation certification in July of 2019, so it's been a little over a year now. And that has changed my path in birth work just because I get to now I'm not actually taking doula clients as much anymore, just due to, like I said, I do have a young daughter. And I'm trying to just give myself and my family a break so that I can do other things that I have planned for my journey. But I am heavily in lactation work right now. I do work with a nonprofit, Chocolate Milk Mommies, as a lactation counselor. And it has just opened my eyes up because I see parents every day asking questions about, how to breastfeed and things that you would think are general knowledge, but are looked over for us because they don't expect us to breastfeed, or they don't choose
Mm,
to educate us because they think, oh, she's just going to be giving formula next week. I'm not going to waste my time.
yeah.
So I think that now my passion is more so lactation, just so that I can help people to be successful, whatever success looks like for them on their journeys, because we are just so counted out and written off when it comes to lactation, especially if you are giving birth in a hospital, if you don't choose to take the time to get the education, to read up, to hire a personal CLC, IBCLC, or, whatever to help you on your journey.
And it's interesting too, because I never thought about seeking or hiring a lactation consultant prior to birth or speaking with someone on my journey. I always thought it was just something that was a part of the hospital in itself. And much like the policies and the things that you experience depending on the hospital that you're in, the lactation consultants in that hospital can be the ones that just don't give them. They can be give you their actually have nobody into home. I think that's the perspective in that. But um, some other reasons why it's important to have a lactation
You
consultant
going
ahead
out
of time.
again. Hold on 1 second. I think it's buffering on my end. I see the little circle spinning. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I can hear you, but it's like totally in and out. And I don't know why I turned my Wi-Fi off. Okay, it stopped. Maybe I'm good now.
You can hear me.
Yes, I hear you now.
Okay. What are damn, I kind of forgot my question. What are
I'm
the reasons
sorry.
why no, it's all good. What are the reasons why you would want to have a certified lactation consultant or hire one prior to birth?
You would want to do that so that you can start your journey on the best foot possible. You can join all the support groups. You can read all you need to read all day, but sometimes, although breastfeeding is natural, it doesn't always come easy. So it's helpful and beneficial for you to have someone that is specifically there for you to support you on your journey, that is not your mom that doesn't really care about breastfeeding, but she's just supporting you, or your auntie that only breastfed for 2 days and was like, I'm not making enough, you know. So it's important to have a personal person that can help you troubleshoot any issue that may arise at any time, because you can join groups all day. If you join Chocolate Milk Mommies, you can ask a question, but it's like it's only so much information that I have about you. So I don't know your medical history. I
Mm,
don't know about your previous breastfeeding journeys. I don't know, how it went with your other kids. I don't know if you had a breast reduction in 2015. I don't know those things. So it is imperative, especially if you've had struggles before, to have someone that can know your medical history and that can pinpoint every issue that you may have, for every issue that you may have had in the past, and help you start on the best foot.
thank you. Um, and so, speaking of releasing generational trauma, tell me about your motherhood journey, um, and like what that means to you as far as the changes that you've experienced and the things that you've learned.
Oh, my motherhood journey has been, it just has been. It's not a traditional motherhood journey. I am a single mom, and not a tradition. I don't want to say traditional single mom, but not a single mom because it didn't work out. My partner transitioned in 2017 when I found out I was pregnant. So I'm a total, like, by myself, no dad involved, single parent, which it hasn't been as much of a struggle throughout my journey as it is now. And I only say that because now my daughter is 3. She just turned dad. So it's been a lot of quickly as to, where's my dad? Why I don't have that? Things like that. But I would say overall, the journey has been beautiful. I have learned so much in the past 3 years of my life, that I may have never known had she not come into my life. And it's been a beautiful thing. And it's helped me greatly to reparent myself as well, because a lot of times, and we talked about this when we did our one-on-one talk, but a lot of time, and I said a lot of times that we want to parent our children based off of what we felt that we needed as children. But
Mm,
you can't parent your children based off your needs. You have to cater to their individual needs. So it takes you reparenting yourself, getting through your traumas, your childhood traumas, your parental resentments and all of that, to step aside and be like, okay, maybe my child doesn't need this. I'm just projecting. Let me
mm.
be what you need me to be.
I love that. And it's probably been a while since you posted about it, but ever since you did post about it, I've talked about it. And it was a conversation that you had with your daughter about the fact that I think it was you took the game or something like that, and then she came back to you and wanted to know,
Oh,
were
yes.
you angry? And so I just wanted you to kind of touch on that because I felt like that interaction spoke volumes.
My daughter is 100% not me. And that's the beautiful thing about the journey. Like we just get who we need. So she's 100% not me. I was never. I can't. I can't say that I was ever as vocal as she is now. And I don't think that it was from anything that my parents did. It was just me personality wise. But her, she's going to talk. She's a talker and she's going to make you reflect on anything. I remember the conversation that you're talking about. We were at the dinner table and it was a little, we had got home a little later, whatever. So, of course, it was past bedtime. I wanted her to eat real fast so we can get upstairs, put your pajamas on, get in the bed. Well, at that time, she was able to watch her iPad during dinner. And so this particular night, she was watching her iPad. I had gave her her food, and she wasn't eating as fast as I would have liked to, so that she can get in the bed. I mean, get in the bed. You know, I took the iPad. Was like, "You're not focusing. Let's go." She was very upset, but it was what it was. I was like, "You'll be okay." Whatever. Went to bed. She woke up. The first thing she said when she opened her eyes was like, "You still mad?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about? You know, I didn't forget about it." She was like, "Well, you took my iPad from me for no reason." And I was like, "I didn't take it for no reason. I took it because you weren't eating." And she said, "I was eating. I just wasn't eating as fast as you wanted me to eat, but I was eating." Like, damn, okay. So I was like, "You're right. You know, all I can say is you're right, because you are right. I apologize." And we moved on. But with her, I do allow her to have a voice, and she has a strong one, even that she just literally, like, 3 weeks ago, turned 3. So she was popping it too. But I do allow her to have a voice because I think in the Black community, we get silenced from a very young age. And that is why so many of us don't feel confident speaking up for ourselves or advocating for ourselves. And I don't want to be the one to stifle that in her at a young age. I don't mind her telling me, you know, how she feels about any punishment that she feels that I have instilled or anything, because we're doing this together. Like, parenting for me is not so much authority, it's a partnership, because a lot of us in general think of kids as less than. But we were kids at one point, and I remember how I felt as a kid sometimes when I felt like things weren't fair, but I couldn't speak up about it because I was afraid that I would get in trouble and stuff like that. So
Mm.
I want her to always feel comfortable talking to me about anything. And I start there off in the beginning now by allowing her to have a say in anything that I do. I know that I'm human. I'm a parent, but I'm a human, and I'm not always right. So if you see an error in anything that I do, please tell me and we can talk about it. Now, I did say in that post that we will talk about tone as she can grasp it. But at this point, after that is all said and done, that was probably maybe a month and a half ago or so. Now I don't even care about tone, because who's to say what tone is appropriate? That's personal as well. So that's just how I parent. A lot of older people, grandmas, will say, "Oh, that's that new age parenting. It's disrespectful." But I don't ever think that it's disrespectful to give another human a voice and a say so on their journey. You're just a part of the journey. You don't own anybody. Nobody owns you. So
Um, yeah, I agree. My son is 5 years old, and he talks about as much as I used to at that age, which is very much a lot. It's a lot, and so I'm seeing it's interesting because that you talked about how you don't want to stifle them from being able to speak up and have, genuine emotions about things. Like, you don't want to create, like, fake apologies and different things like that. And it's like, I want to instill that, but at the same time, I feel the frustrations and the anger and the all of the things that I'm assuming my parents must have felt. Like, I have very little patience, I've noticed, because things may not be going my way. And I think that I have timed the amount of patience that my mom had or my dad had before they lashed out or they, or they reacted. And I think that that's something that I'm having to work on, but it's not something that has gone away at all yet. Like I lose my patience and I completely like shut down because I'm trying to stop myself from reacting in ways that have been reacted to me. And then at the same time, it's like I'm picking and choosing moments when I'm allowing him to be free. And other times I feel like I'm dimming his light in a lot of ways. And so it's a checks and balance type of thing, but I definitely see how I'm trying to I think that's why they call it a curse, because you're trying to break out of something and you have to really get it to click before you can truly get out of it, because it's in your DNA, like it's in your movement, and you have to over time break that conditioning, if that makes sense. For anybody in the comments, because I see Loving the Journey says, I love that comparison of authority versus partnership. This generation is definitely rehabilitating the child to parent relationship. If any of y'all in the comments have generational trauma specifically that you would like for us to talk about, please throw them into the comment section. We'd love to talk about it for sure. But yeah, back to you and the fact that like tone and all of that stuff. I feel like I just recently found like a parenting page, and this particular lady, her and her husband, they have fostered other kids, and so they have to, they've had experiences from children that are babies all the way up until they've had 17-year-olds. So of course you're gonna have to parent in so many different ways depending on that child. And so I like the fact that they're able to kind of go with the flow and kind of adjust, because I feel like parents, our parents and their parents, it's kind of like they don't give you, of course they're not going to give you anything as far as what they taught you, how they raised you and things like that. But it also sucks because you can't really go to them for anything because you have to figure it out on your own. It's feeling like you're feeling in the dark for something, and you got to figure it out as you go, basically, because nobody has this manual that they talk about.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Let's see. So you so what inspired you to become a lactation consultant? Because you told me that you had breastfed for 26 months. That is amazing.
Long time.
Yes.
What inspired me to do it was just basically me doing it. So when I started breastfeeding, I was pretty much the first in my immediate family that I known to breastfeed, exclusively. And so I got on a journey. I was pretty much by myself. My family wasn't unsupportive, but I mean, they weren't vocally supportive either. I think it was just they didn't know, do what you do with your baby, whatever. So I'm thankful that they weren't like, oh, she ain't getting enough, that part. But I started breastfeeding and I got in all of these groups actually before I started breastfeeding when I was pregnant, just so I could learn what I needed to learn, because of course, like I said, I was the first person to do it. So I'm getting in all these groups, I'm reading all this information, and then my baby comes and I'm doing it. And I began to see all of these things that women are going through. And I'm like, why ain't nobody helping? I didn't personally know back then any Black COCs, IBCOCs, aside from the groups that I was in. They were ran by CLCs and things like that. But as far as locally, I didn't know anybody. So I was like, how can I help this? I got involved with Chocolate Milk Mommies in 2018. And they asked me, I was just in the group. We started out as just, generally a Facebook group. So I was in the group and I started answering questions, helping other moms, because I know, that that's important on this journey. And so they asked me to be a part of the actual business side of the nonprofit. I am the vice president of the organization. And from there, I just wanted to go deeper into it. So I went and got my lactation certification, like I said, last summer. And I've taken off from there. I do eventually want to start a practice so that people can get the in-person lactation support that they need. But that's just pretty much what started me on my journey. And like you said, I had done it for 2 years and 2 months, so it was a long journey, but it's doable. I tell everybody, not to brag, but throughout the whole 26 months, I never gave a bottle of formula, never supplemented, nothing. So I just say that to people so that people can know, like, it is possible for breast milk to sustain human babies because mom is alive and did it. So, a lot of people don't think that. They don't know that, though. They think that, oh, I can breastfeed and it's only good for 6 weeks, or I can breastfeed, but I got to give a bottle of formula after. It's just so much misinformation in our community. And it's not our fault. It comes from generations, being wet nurses and, just the resentment from breastfeeding and things like that. So it's not our fault, but it's time to get back to what we know that we could and should be doing with our babies.
Damn, that's really unfortunate because I didn't really think about the fact that you can feel resentment about
Mm-hmm.
breastfeeding your child because our ancestors had to breastfeed other people's babies. And I didn't think about how that can become a detriment to our children.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Tiana Sticks Fits Fit says, it's the time of breastfeeding. So many benefits for mom and baby with breastfeeding. Yes, of course.
Mm-hmm.
I talk about the microbiome all the time and
Mm-hmm.
why it is so crucial. If you cannot have, a vaginal birth, of course, not everybody has a vaginal birth. When you get that microbiome, those organisms that are from every woman that ever came before you, you definitely have to, breastfeed for them to get that. Of course, they can get it in other ways, like, rub it against your skin and things, but it's nothing like connecting and getting it through breast milk, period.
Right.
Yeah. Let's see. So, and oh yeah, and so chocolate milk mommies, when you told me about that, it really blew me away. The fact that we or you are supporting black women through their breastfeeding journey. I had never heard about it. If there's like a group like this in Texas or Houston specifically, I want to know about it. As far as I know, I was never told about it. I would have to do some research on my own to find out what my resources are in my area. But when you talked about it, it just made so much sense in the fact that I believe you said there were other women in this organization that were breastfeeding at the same time, and the fact that y'all came together and created that from your journeys, I think that that's beautiful. And the fact that, as you said, like not having family to support and you guys relying on one another, I think that's amazing. Um, so tell me, what are some of the generational curses that you feel like need to be addressed in 2020?
All of no.
Yeah.
Number
Of
one, the
course.
biggest one I would say is parenting.
Mhm.
And I think that that's probably because that's where I am in my life's journey. I am actively parenting and just learning and or unlearning to relearn. So I think that us in the Black community in general, we all need to take a conscious parenting course, read a book or something. Because a lot of times, most of us just parent off of what our parents did. And it may not have worked. It probably didn't work. But it's one of those things that it's all that I know. So it's all
Mhm.
that I'm going to do. And you have to take the initiative. Like, this ain't easy. Conscious parenting is not easy. You have to take the initiative to learn different ways. And I think that that can be frightening for a lot of us, especially in the times. A lot of the common things that I hear, especially with Black boys. I gotta whoop them before the police do, or something like
Mm.
that. And you just have to realize that it's more to parenting than that. A lot of people ask me that know that I'm very vocal about my journey, especially on my Facebook platform and things like that. And a lot of people ask me, well, how you gonna discipline your child or whatever? And I think that it's very unfair to children to just think about how you're gonna discipline them.
Mm.
Parenting is comprehensive. It's not just about disciplining a child and raising them up to do right. They will probably do better if you had a relationship connection over correction all the time for me. And I think that it will serve a lot of people better if they learn that principle and not just lashed out. And I know it can be very difficult. You talked about earlier, how it's kind of difficult for you to like find your balance and to hold your patience, and it's hard. Like, I'm very vocal about positive conscious parenting, whatever you want to call it, but I lose my patience as well. I mean, we're all human. But a part of this journey is realizing that sometimes you mess up. It's not always perfect, but in those moments that you mess up, you just have to be intentional about learning from the situation.
Mm.
So I think that that's just really what we need to be focused on right now, raising these babies in the most positive way that we can, because they deserve it and we deserve it. Um, More so because once you get into conscious parenting, and a lot of it is, as I said earlier, reparenting yourself, you do yourself a favor as well. You are redeeming your younger self, giving your younger self love, and all of that through also learning how to be your best self for your child.
Mm.
The second thing I would say, generational, that we need to focus on is everything we talked about: breastfeed. Like I said, that it can be a lot of generational resentment because of wet nursing and things like that, but it's going back to also what you said about your dealings with parenting, and it's in our DNA. Trauma passes through the DNA. Anytime you go through anything that is traumatic, your DNA changes. So it's not your fault if you feel certain ways. It's not your fault if you fall into certain patterns. It's not your fault if you don't choose to do better. But it kind of is. I won't say the last part, if you choose to do better, because it is your fault if you don't choose to do better. You can have all these things that have happened to you, that have been passed down to you, but what are you going to do to change those things?
Mm.
So, yeah, those are my two focuses in my life, in my journey, and what I'm trying to help others to, do better in.
Mm.
And I can't see the comments, so if anybody is commenting, I'm sorry,
I
but
see some. Let me see. Oh, and Nico Lee says the notion that your
hey, girl.
yes, the notion that your children will only respect you if they're scared of you is sad to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
I feel like with my father, it's interesting because I pretty much avoid him and don't have conversations with him. But both of my parents, every time I try to talk to them, they have the exact same conversation over and over. It's never anything but the same thing. And I'll get to that in a little bit. But as far as the fear, I feel like my dad instilled a type of fear in me that made me have a repulsion towards men, or like
Mm.
an aversion, like wanting to like not be around them because they either didn't respect women or hold regard for them. And just as a child feeling like, I can't trust you to be myself 100% and I don't feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that, not that he was just beating my ass all the time, but even just in conversation, I didn't feel safe to be myself.
Mm-hmm.
F. Courtney says, you mentioned reparenting self. Advice for us folks with no kids before we plan to have them. I'm sure reparenting self, then parenting at the same time is hard. Yes, because I was gonna say something about the for the people that don't have kids that are watching. Um, I would say going down that self-discovery journey and tapping into the ways that you have been parented, the ways that you have experienced generational curses, if you have, and breaking those things down as you go, because it can show up in the ways that you interact with other people. It can show up in your relationships, and um you know and I feel like it's not something that's solely specific to parenting. It just manifests itself in that way because of the fact that you were parented, so now you're having to go through the same journey, but you're doing it differently. And so I would say touch base and journal and think about the ways that your relationship with your mother and father and grandparents and whoever was in your life, how that has impacted you as the person that you are today. Um, Raw Yoni Power says, preaching right now, so good. J. Marie Miller says, epigenetics is so real. You can immediately let yourself know this is not what you want to pass down. So good. F. Courtney, exposure and even realizing it's a problem is first, right? Yes. Recognizing, I mean, of course, you can recognize things that you do that are a problem, just in general in life. First is good, and I think that, and Nico Lee says go to therapy. Yes, go to therapy for sure. Um, and I think that therapy is something that isn't talked about enough because we want to put it solely onto the Bible and solely onto religion. But I feel like for my family specifically, because both sides of my family for the most part have had religion or Christianity or church as the foundation, but
Mm-hmm.
it gets to a point where like my grandmother for specifics is she only speaks in scripture for the most part. Like she'll talk to me about things, but everything at the end of the day comes out as scripture. So when you want to talk about something that may have happened down the line, where it's like my aunts and uncles and all of us that have been affected by things that she may have experienced, she won't be able to talk about it because she will shut down or respond in ways that maybe her mother put onto her. And so that becomes a barrier, and that's why I say to go to therapy, because I feel like the defense for that is always like, oh well, all you need is God, and God is going to take you. But we have people here to talk you through, we have people to talk you through and process the experiences that you have as you go. And I think that it's best to have your mental wellness being a
Mm-hmm.
priority in your life anyway. um
Yeah, I tell people all the time, God gave us therapies. Like faith without works is dead. So you can pray
yeah.
all day, but what are you doing to actively help yourself through whatever it is that you're going through?
Yes. Dang, it was something specific I wanted to talk about. As far as the generational curses, I'm trying to think what I want to talk about first, because I was just talking to my partner about a situation that occurred, and I guess I can connect this back to talking to my parents, and they say the same things over and over. So what I mean by that is like um, they will either talk to me about what their intentions are, that they're the good parent or they're the one with the best intentions for you and they love you, and um they don't want to down talk the other one, but they go in and start talking about how things were hard because of the other person. And
Mm,
um you know there are so many dynamics to the relationship between my mother and father where even my younger brothers, we can't tell what's real and what's not. We can't go back in time and see who was really genuine in this moment, who was really physically, verbally abused by the other in this moment, and how that affects us um, to today. And just the other day, I felt so much rage and anger towards my mom because, of course, like I have not officially told my family that I'm pregnant, but I felt like out of all of the things to reach out and talk to me about, I took it in a very negative way because she reached out and was like, well, Stephanie, I was breastfed. I don't know if I ever told you. And so this isn't the thing, but she brought this up because what's interesting is that my grandmother says she never breastfed any kids, but my mom says that she was breastfed. So that just goes in to show that the type of just traumas and things and the ways that happen in between my mom and my grandma. And so then it
Mm-hmm.
dives into there are so many things in you that you do that are connected to me. Now, of course, I talk about this all the time because on a scientific level, your microbiome, literally everything. When you are pregnant in the womb, you carry your mother and your grandmother. You got to think about that. You carry all of the other women that came before. And so I know that everything in my mom and all the things I process are there. And it's also this thing I feel resentment towards that she says where it's like, I don't know anything, but I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna understand her and I don't know her yet. So it's always this vague umbrella of like, I'm only getting a piece of her, but it's like I spent 25 years or 24 years growing up with you to see who you are, but you can't give me anything more than that. I have to literally have this same conversation with you forever. And it made me feel anger more than it made me feel anything else because again, I've had this conversation many times before. And so I think that's one specific trauma of mine that I would like to break down. And even the fact that she said in the past, just like wait until you have children to see how they'll make you feel. Or the fact that, you'll have kids and maybe you'll end up feeling like you didn't do, what you should have did because your kids make you feel like, you failed. So I guess because I'm making the choice to do things differently, I'm still going to end up with children who think that I'm not the best mom or that I traumatized them in some way, and it's not going to be anything other than that. So those are the two things for me um, that are there.
I will say first, congratulations. I didn't know you were
Thank you.
pregnant. But going back to what you said, I think with us black girls, black girls, there is this mother daughter dynamic that is not always right. But I will say that I had to learn, and actually, this just came to me like a few days ago, honestly. Um, we have to forgive our parents for ourselves because you just have to realize, and it took me a long time to realize that our parents parented through their traumas the best that they could with less resources than we have now. So that does not make it right. But we will always, I say that I used to say rather when I first started therapy, I was pregnant, I would say, well, I'm in therapy so that my daughter would never have to go to therapy. But that's unfair for me to say that because we will always have our own traumas. And it is no way for me to prevent that in her life. I know she's going to have some things because of the fact that her father she's never met him. He's never been here. He's never been a part of her life. But she may have some things for me. And I think I'm doing a darn good job. But we can't always look at things from our personal perspectives. And that's something that your mom is gonna have to do too. Sometimes they won't do it because denial, all of that. But parents also have to look at the fact that what we tell them is not necessarily an attack on how they parented us, but it's just our perspective. And a lot of times they may project or try to discredit because they do feel like, I did good. Or when you get, like you said, when you have children, you will understand, no. Because if my daughter ever said, hey, I feel like you didn't do your best and you could have did better, XYZ, I hear you. I can't fix it, but I apologize. How can we move forward? But I think a lot of our parents need to learn how to do that and to let it go. Because a lot of times it is hurtful to feel like, oh, damn, my child feels like I want shit. That's how they take what we say, although that's not what I said. But that can be hurtful. Just me thinking of myself as a parent, I can understand how that may be hurtful, how you may feel like that it's attacking your character, attacking, everything that you've done. But That's something that our parents are going to have to do as well. And I always tell
Mm-hmm.
people, I went to a therapy session with both my mom and my father before he passed. And it was pretty helpful for myself to kind of move forward past some things. No, it didn't fix anything, but it helped me to get some of the answers that I need. I know that everybody's parents not going to go to therapy with them, but if you are in therapy, that is something that I do suggest, like just a session or two with your parents, just to have that common ground mediator to be like, hey, she said what she said, but she didn't mean how you took it. Because a lot of the times we shut down when people tell us how they feel, and we start to mistranslate just because of our feelings about how things were said. You
Mm.
can't do that. That's not fair. So I do recommend therapy with parents, but that's something that a lot of us women have to get through. And sometimes you won't get that, but that goes back to, like I said, reparenting yourself, telling your younger self that you are there for the support that you feel like you may not have had, and you may still not have, but you got you. And that's all that matters in the grand scheme of this life thing.
Um, I'm trying to see because we have so much that we have not even talked about yet, and we only
Yeah,
have
we
7 minutes.
did. Nah, we gonna go into overtime. But
um,
no, we like.
let's see. Hmm. I want to know what are your thoughts around birth control and awareness of the body, and then we can close with um, takeaways for up and coming birth workers and parents, like any advice that you would like to give.
Okay. So birth control for me, I have no feelings on it. I mean, it's a personal choice. Do what you need to do for yourself. I am personally kind of anti birth control. I do like natural methods, natural medicine, all of that. I don't take any prescriptions and things like that. But sometimes it may be a time in your life where it's necessary. I have been on birth control this year. It was necessary for myself in that part of my journey. So um I always say to do what's best for you, but to always look into natural resources, natural family planning, tracking your cycle, taking your temp. Like it's ways that you can prevent pregnancy if that is what you are trying to do with your life, without birth control. But if you don't trust yourself enough to do that, then the hormones are necessary. Um, because if you get pregnant, then what are you gonna do? If you don't choose to keep your baby, that's a decision that you have to live with. So, it's just a lot that goes into that topic for me, personally. So I just say do what's best for you. Into research. The knowledge is out there to be able to do anything that you desire to do effectively. So,
Yes. I think that the fact that being aware of your body is something that I want to dive deeper in and have more conversations, of course, in the future
hmm
about because I think people worry about what other people are doing a lot. And I think that the other part of it is education, as far as like, why do we have to put it on women to go
women,
in and get their tubes
yeah,
tied? Why can't you go and get a vasectomy that can be reversed? And, all
right.
of these things that are not as invasive. I have taken natural remedies. I was taking like wild carrot seed tincture for a while. And I was yoni steaming as well and all of that. But I feel like um, it's a conversation that still needs to be had, and there's a lot of generational traumas around birth control and things too.
hmm
Um, but in these final moments, what advice do you have for aspiring birth workers and parents out here, and people that just want to break the generational cycle of trauma?
Um, for birth workers in this field, if you are thinking about doing it, do it. And don't worry about it. I think now everything is so whitewashed, and you got to have a certification for this, and are you certified for that? No, it doesn't matter. If it's something that you're passionate about, do it, because we need us in this field, period. And don't worry about how you're going to pay for it. There are, if you do choose the route of certification and things like that, there are tons of scholarships for women of color that want to go down this path. So I always ask for scholarships, email, whoever you need to email to see how you can get this done without trying to stress yourself in your pockets if you really don't have it like that. So my tidbit for birth workers is to do it. It's ancestral. This is what we have been doing. This is what we're always gonna do. Follow your roots. It's in you. You know what to do. For parents on this journey, um, I would say trust yourself and trust your children. Listen to your children. Nobody can tell you better how to parent than the person that you are parenting. And as I said earlier, get rid of those ideals of I'm going to be what I needed as a child. Be what you needed as a child for yourself now. But let that go. Stop projecting and be what your child needs in these moments. And that can change. Like we all are forever changing. That's the part of being a human on this life journey. So sometimes you have to adjust, how you're doing, what you're doing. But I always just listen. It's a partnership. Parenting is not about, like I said, authority and who runs it. It's a partnership. Y'all are mirrors. Let your children teach you all the lessons that you know, because they are more wise than we are, actually, if you want to be real. For those that are not parents yet, I would say to reparent yourself, going back to the question earlier from Courtney, look at your relationships, like you said, because relationships tell us a lot about the things that we still struggle with. Relationships reveal a lot of our triggers. So, what in the relationships in your life are triggering you? And you can 9 times out of 10 pinpoint that back to when I was a child, XYZ made me feel like ABC. So, just be mindful and be present in all of your relationships in all times. And when you are being introduced to your triggers and things that you have not yet healed from, which I don't like to say that too freely because we are never fully healed, but things that you are still greatly struggling with, use those as pinpoints to get back to why you feel the way that you feel, to reparent yourself and get through those childhood or generational traumas.
Beautiful. I appreciate you so much for saying that. And it's crazy how I come up with so many different ideas. Because when I did the live with Erica, I was at a point where I wanted to do a yoni steaming and womb wellness workshop, dive into all that means. And the other idea that I'm starting to have as well is actually teaching, or not even just teaching, but showing people my journey on what it looks like to reparent and what it's like to adjust. Because as I'm beginning a whole new pregnancy, I kind of want to be able, I want to keep track of my progress and how I did things differently this time, and how I'm trying to parent as I go, and how certain methods that I may learn work for me and it may work for you. And so I would love to like have something similar to this where we break down more generational traumas, different conflicts or things that arise in the parenting journey and just self discovery journey, and how that works, you know, overall as a human being. So I'm excited to see what that's going to manifest into going into the new year. But I believe, this conversation is for sure never going to be finished. We have so much to touch on
Definitely.
with this particular topic. So The other thing that I would like to share is, let's see, I am a Black owned business. And so the reason why I do the Rose Golden Hour, the Iconoclast series, and literally anything else that I put out is because I want to help connect with other individuals and be able to give you something to take with you. But I am a mom. I have, you know, a life, a family, and things like that. So I would love any donations to my Black owned business, Rose Gold Birth Services, because that goes towards not only clients that need services and cannot afford those services, it also goes towards me because I am the business. It's no separation.
Mhm.
And a lot of the things that I need to have my cup filled to do this work, um, you know, give, as well as donate to Chocolate Milk Mommies, because that is a beautiful mission to be able to give um, to Black breastfeeding women, educate, and be a part of their journey through breastfeeding as well. I will add all of that into the comment section below. And
Okay.
yeah, I appreciate everybody that watched. And yeah, catch y'all next week. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Tiffany. Thank
You're
you so much
welcome.
for being here.
Anytime. Thank you for having me.
All right, y'all all have a great night. I will talk to y'all soon.
Okay.